Welcome back. We look forward, as a Hashem, to continue this Igeres HaKodesh, the 12th Igeres HaKodesh. We're holding on page Kuf Yud Ches, on the bottom. Actually, the last line, Achloshin Avoida. However, the expression Avoida service, what are we talking about here? So, let me just give a little bit, again, namely for the newcomers. The Igeres HaKodesh is this is Yud Beis, is the 12th in 12th letter, holy letter of the Alter Rebbe, in this segment called the Igeres HaKodesh, the fourth segment of Tanya, four out of 5. We did have a quite elaborative presentation in the beginning of Yud, the 10th Igeres. Worthwhile, instead of repeating, even for the newcomers, it's just a click away to the beginning of Yud. There's a lot of backdrop of this whole segment, to this whole segment. Also, this is Igeres. Every letter is written separately, separate time and separate addressing a particular issue. Like any other letter, it's different, very distinct than the first three parts, the first three segments of the Sefer of Tanya, Kadisha, the Holy Sefer of Tanya. Of course, there it's an idea which is presented, even though there's different aspects and there's different topics, the way it's grouped together in Likutei Amarim, which you have 53 chapters. And even later, Shaykh Lemuna 12, he gives the Chuvas 12, but nonetheless, it's sequential. Each Pedic is following the previous. This is separate Igeres, separate letters. Again, we shouldn't repeat because we heard this a few times, especially those who partake in the class, and those who don't, we had, again, a little more of a detailed presentation in the beginning of Yud. The beginning of Igeres HaKodesh, the 10th epistle. Now, to find to go back to Yud as an example, just as an example, it's just really a click away wherever you're watching it. But there's an advantage. This we do mention, because it's always good to know that there is the ability to go back to all the previous classes, which we do cross-reference many times and like look there and find it in the explanation of this chapter and that, and it's easy with the original website to go there to wherever this is explained a little more expansively. The Tanya on the original website would be tanyaonline.com, one word, Tanya Online, or Tanya Online, one word.com. Quite simple. And also this is I believe the 7th class on Yud Beis. So to understand what Yud Beis is talking about, of course we will not repeat. We have a little issue of kind of taking too much time to repeat the previous class, but we really do not need to do that. It's a click away. That all the classes of the Igeres HaKodesh is right there on the beginning of the top of the left side, the top of the website. It goes from the more recent down to the less recent and so on. So you can see all the classes, and you could understand when we say Lashon Avoda, you have to see the previous classes. Namely, the Alter Rebbe is talking about, yes, in brief. So he quotes the pasuk from Yeshaya, V'hoya Maisa Hatzdaka Shalom, that the action of tzedakah will bring peace. Avodas Hatzdaka, the service of tzedakah, will bring Hashkit B'vetach Hadayla, security, calm, tranquility, and security forever. Which, of course, it's much more of an intense blessing or intense type of reciprocation. Now, Shalom, of course, is a great blessing on its own, especially the Alter Rebbe explains Shalom. We will not repeat it because it'll go much too long. You got to see the previous classes. Shalom is one of the greatest blessings, not only in the context of, peace. Of course, peace is a great blessing, but when the Alter Rebbe explains Shalom, where it comes from, Isa Shalom b'mreim, of the way it's on high, and the way it reflects on this plane, the blessing of clarity, the blessing of Tiferes associated with the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, brings all the brachas, but nonetheless the clarity, the ability to have a certain clean and clear approach to matters. You got to see the previous chapter. So there's enormous blessing in the idea of Shalom, but Shalom comes even for Maisa Hatzdaka, for the action of tzedakah. So we did mention, apparently it seems redundant, Maisa Tzedakah, and Avodas Tzedakah, action of tzedakah, and service of tzedakah. Action of tzedakah is also a service. We mentioned a few times the nature of the human being, even the Yid, even the Frumi Yid, to be very careful on the mitzvahs, comes to tzedakah, a total different challenge. To write a check, to want to extend himself, to impart with his money, his or her money which they put in, invested. We know that money person invests a lot in order to be able to gather money, and so on. Money is a topic. It's a dynamic on its own, and in the context of tzedakah, of course, it's a dynamic on its own. It's a mitzvah on its own. You can see very clearly people are mahadir, very careful. Now the mitzvahs come to mitzvah tzedakah. It's a new parsha. It's a separate parsha. It's a separate idea, a separate experience, if you will. So every tzedakah is really avodah. You're imparting something which is dear to you by nature. It's nothing wrong. Money could be dear to somebody because as a human being, right? And more, of course, we elevate ourselves and we become more connected to the divine. Anything material, even money, has less value on its own, or less appreciation, or less drive to it. But on the average human being, money is precious, and imparting for money is a step. It's one way or another. It's avodah. It's a service. I know Hashem wants me to give tzedakah, so I'm going to do something which I'm naturally, not particularly comfortable with, but I know that's important, and I'll do it. And I'll do it expansively. So really, every ma'isa is avodah tzedakah. So we ask the question and the answer, like, what is this ma'isa tzedakah? Avodah tzedakah. Every tzedakah is about avodah service. I'm compelling myself to give something dear for me, impart with something which is dear to me. So every Ma'aseh tzedakah is really avodah tzedakah. But Alter Rebbe explains, no, there is a difference. Ma'aseh tzedakah is one way of giving tzedakah, and avodah is a total different way. And he says, again, at the end of last week, if you can see, it's really a click away. Let's try to make it very brief. Ma'aseh tzedakah is, this is what the Yid is all about. He's inclined one way or another. Of course, as everything develops, Neshama enters into a body with bodily desires, and even animalistic desires and natural desires. So in the end of the day, everything is a thing, giving away something which as a human being, it's dear to me. But innately, inherently, a Yid is always about tzedakah. He's a geim lechesed in nature. The DNA of a Yid is to give, to impart, to be kind. That's who we are. Shleisha Simonim Yesh B'Ul Mazulik, says the Gemara, that there's 3 signs which define the Yid. And one of them is geim lechasadim, rachmanim. We're merciful. We're compassionate people. So therefore, our starting point is something inherent within us, or because it's inherent within us, so the starting point is not such a great avodah. And again, you have to see the previous class. And here the Alter Rebbe begins. Now we can appreciate what the next part of the pasuk is. Avodah is a different type of idea. It's not just following an innate inclination as a Yid, as a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, chelik l'kam imal mamash, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who we are as a Yidin, as Am Yisrael, Rachmanim b'goyim lichasadim. We're compassionate and we're kind. But beyond that, there's something very unique and very different, which is beyond the norm, even of the Yid, and even of the godly soul of the Yid. And this is the idea of Avodah Tzedakah, as Dr. Rebbe is going to explain it. And therefore, the reciprocation for that is a total different type of schar, reward, or consequence, or something which comes as a result, which is hashkeit vavetach adaylam. Not only shalom, peace, the way it explains it here within its own, is a great blessing, like we just mentioned, but even tranquility and calm for eternity. And that's what Alter Rebbe says, Lashon Avodah, Ein Neifel El Al Adam Sh'Adam Eisibi Gia Tzuma. The terminology, the definition of Avodah, service, is something what someone does with great toil, intense toil, against the teva nafshe, against the nature of a soul. Oh, that's a different idea. Actually, mevatel tive, he subdues, he annuls, he nullifies his nature. He subdues his nature, subjugates his nature. Uretzayne, in his desire, in the face of the supreme desire of the Almighty. Baruch Hu, blessed be He, Hashem, blessed be He. For example, to toil oneself in learning Torah or bitfilo, and in prayer at mitzvah nefesh, to the core of the soul. Whoa, that's a different idea. And we know when a Yid can learn Torah, sits like that, he learns, a little fun, and I'll go through it, everything, ask him what he learned, probably mention a few ideas. Could you say there was clarity in that daf, or that page, in that amud, or maybe yes, maybe not. And it all reflects how much the person invested in that learning. There's learning Torah and there's learning Torah. Learning Torah is you learn, you understand, the Rashi, grab your eye, grab a Tosfos and so on, but then you toil in Torah. We all know the difference. We need not to elaborate on this. Toiling in Torah is a different idea. And also, how much time a person invests. He starts getting edgy after 20 minutes and a coffee break and this. It's fine to drink coffee, to drink a little coffee when you want. If it parches the how do you say, bring a little calm and tranquility. And the idea is sometimes when you toil, you want to just gain another bit of calm. You drink something as you learn, as an example, fine. And not everybody needs it, especially when you're involved in it. You don't really need all this stuff. In the past, people used to smoke a cigarette. What was the point? The point is something they toiled so much and they needed something extra, strand to loosen in their mind and their appreciation and their understanding, their perception of the matters. So maybe that helped them, or something to drink. But in the end, that also falls away because you're toiling in Torah. It's not a relaxed, lax type of experience, which we know that in Torah it does exist. The guy comes, listens to something a little here, there, 20 minutes, an hour. Sometimes you toil in Torah, a person could sit 5 hours without interruption. So of course there's something special that he continued learning Torah, but mind, heart, and soul, and speech, which is again another dimension, important dimension. In the way Yid learns Torah, the Gemara in Eiruvin Chaim brings the pasuk Chaim Mitzayeh Bepev, verbalizing the words of Torah, another daf and understanding it, namely understanding it. Learning Torah is not saying Tehillim. David Melech asked, of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that saying Tehillim, reciting Tehillim should be as if one learns the most complicated tractates of Talmud, Kinigoyim v'Holis. David Melech was before the Talmud, the compilation of the Talmud, but the ideas, of course, were there. David Melech says, he asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that when someone says Tehillim, it should be as if he's involved in the deepest levels, deepest tractates of the deepest concepts. It's complicated, complex concepts of Torah, and Hashem acquiesces to David Melech. But nonetheless, Tehillim is Tehillim. When a person opens the Gemara, it's not Tehillim. It's not a matter of saying. Even Tehillim, we should have concentration. We should appreciate the words. Well, it's a different Tehillim, of course, even when we realize the depth of David HaMelech and how much he allowed that unique type of connection to Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu precisely through Tehillim. That's why it's called Ni'im Zmiris Yisrael. David HaMelech represented an idea, a phenomenon which he incorporated, which was incorporated into every single Yid, or given to every single Yid, incorporated into the system of Am Yisrael, say a capital Tehillim, and when you learn it and read it and you appreciate the depth of it, it establishes a certain vulnerability of the man in front of it, human being in front of his creator, particularly the Yids, particularly someone who understands and appreciates the words of Tehillim. But Tehillim is Tehillim. You sit down by Gemara, it's not Tehillim. I'm not going to just say the words and I hope I understand it a little bit, a lot. No, it's every word has to shine. Every Rashi and every Tosfos, and when you're looking into Rosh, Rishon, that is, you got to understand it, and every word has to make sense. There's no extra words, and if there is, you didn't grab it, you didn't get it. So the person toils more and more. Sometimes it's a little bit like Lashon in the Rebbe Hashav's Memorim, that it becomes like impossible. The person feels very vulnerable and a situation very difficult. He uses the Lashon Hazorim. He uses the pasuk there regarding Torah as well. Hazayrim bedima berina yiktzeira. You sow with tears, and of course, precisely the one who sows with tears, he says it as well in the context of limud Torah. It becomes, there's tears there. It can be physically or figuratively. It's a certain bitterness. You're trying to understand. The message is in front of you. You don't get it, so it's tortured a little bit in a way. But you toil through it. All of a sudden, a light opens up. Berina yiktzeira. You reap with joy. It's a different Gemara when you toil in the Torah that you learn. It's a different idea, and therefore you don't look at the clock so much. The clock is not relevant right now because you're involved. You're sunk into a world of consecutive learning without any, because you have a quota. You decide to do it. And you decide to do it thoroughly, and to do something thoroughly, you have to toil. And therefore, again, if the clock goes by in a different way, you don't become so, you're not looking at the clock so often. But again, that's another idea that the person, the Bali Musa, right? That when you learn Torah, you should completely get involved. But here you're talking about, there's something which is deep within the nefesh. It's not only I'm learning Torah, but I'm toiling in Torah. And of course, Dr. Rebbe mentions over here davening. There's davening and davening. So davening says the words, has a little kavanah, a lot kavanah, gives a little dance on the side, but there's real davening. Mitzvah nefesh, my core of my soul is involved, like Dr. Rebbe has in different chapters. In the Kuti Amorim, Tzoak Libam, I believe it's in Perek Chav Tes or Lamed Aleph, Kuti Amorim, it's really a click away. It's a soul experience, and the person's completely, of course, you have it in Igeres HaKodesh. Hashem, the Alter Rebbe writes in the first Igeres HaKodesh of this segment. The other one was the first of this four. We're holding it the fourth. Likutei Amarim is the first. You have it, I believe, in Chav Tes or Lamed Aleph. Chav Tes. No, of course, Lamed and Perek Chav Hey. Got to see what Alter Rebbe writes about toiling in prayer. These two chapters, 25 and 30. But there's different expressions. B'tzarlei, that it's tzak libam, that it's a real heart and soul experience. A real heart and soul experience. Yeah, he has a bit of it in Lamed Aleph, like we said, and I believe in Chav Tes as well. There's a few words over here. I believe it's in this chapter as well. In any case, this is what it's all about. It's not only just lip service, and it's beyond more than lip service. It's mitzvah nefesh. This lashon mitzvah nefesh. You have the first, and Igeres HaKodesh in this segment as well. It's a click away. The first of Igeres HaKodesh. Alter Rebbe writes that mitzvah yom every single day to get involved in prayer. So it's not only tell the yid to daven every day. Of course, he daven every day. He's a from yid. He daven 3 times a day. And he tries to daven the minyan. Makes all the effort to daven the minyan, of course. Gemara says in Brachas how unique it is to daven with a minyan. Henkel kabel leyimbos. Famous Gemara in Brachas. So he makes that effort, but we're talking much deeper than that. It's toiling in davening. Oh, that's a different idea. That's avodah. And so too, in the context of this chapter, of this pasuk, b'afkam b'mitzvah tzedakah, so too in the mitzvah tzedakah, litein harbe yeiser mitaverach manusir tzayne, to give more than the nature of your compassion and your desire. And what nature of what compassion, or compassion of what nature rather? We're talking about the nature of the godly soul. The godly soul also has a certain sense of infinite giving, but nonetheless, it's the nature of the godly soul. And that nature of the godly soul is the Ma'aseh Tzedakah, which he speaks about in the first pasuk, first part of the pasuk, first part of the verse, which we elaborated on in the end of last week's class, a click away. But it's still the nature of the compassion of the godly soul, the desire of the godly soul. And here we're talking about even beyond that. That's saying a lot. That's something extraordinary. Harbe yeser mitever rachmanusay. The Alter Rebbe just explained that Rachmanus, the compassion, the inherent compassion of the Yid, is part of who he is as a Yid, as a chelik al-kamimal, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem's midos, our beligvul, like the Alter Rebbe writes last week, because we come from there. So our giving, our compassion reflects and resembles the unhigh, the compassion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but nonetheless, it's the nature of the Yid. It's very deep over here. We're talking about the nature of the godly soul. The godly soul is part of God. God is infinite. Hashem's midos are infinite. Nonetheless, it's the nature of the godly soul. Avodah is going even beyond that nature. That is stupendous. That's a different type of giving tzedakah. To give much more. Like the Chazal tell us, where is this intimated in the Torah? Torah says, "Nosing titing." You should give a filamea pa'amim even 100 times. Why is Torah telling us to give us 100 times? So it's just interesting to note, Nosim, whenever Torah says a double expression, it's not just double two, but it's just like I always give. Sometimes it fits this example, which you have 2 mirrors. Classically, the barber, for whatever reason, their image is like the mirrors facing each other, or at least the way it was when I grew up. Someone said that's true Ein Sof. because we don't find anything in stuff. This is not real. It's just an image or a mirror. But the idea is because it mirrors one of the others, so really there is no end. If you think about it, there's no end. Sometimes it's just somewhat, it's not perfect. It curves off a bit. Getting technical of my memories of my youth. But categorically, this is real Ein Sof because there's never an end. So when Titus puts two words together, shaleach to shalach, when it comes to sending away the bird, in this case, nosein titing, to give. How much did you give? You must have feel mea palmim, even 100 times, because the nosein titing, they both face each other and there's never an end. And of course, the Gemara says mea palmim, it's not limited to 100. It's afilu mea palmim, even 100, which is, there's no end. And how much the Yid could give away as charity to execute this type of tzedakah, not only Maisa tzedakah, the way it was explained in last week's class, but Avodas tzedakah, service, compelling oneself to do beyond 100 times. If I gave $1,000, now I'm going to give $100,000 if the person can, of course. It's a different type of giving. And it doesn't stop by 100. This is something which has a spirit of infinitum. Avodah, total different idea. And now we got to understand, based on this expression of the pasuk, of the verse, Avodah, comparison to Maisa Tzedakah, which brings Shalom, which is also a great blessing, especially the way it's explained in this very chapter, in this very get, in this very epistle, holy epistle of the Alter Rebbe. Get to see it again, click away to understand the depth and the grandeur of this very blessing of Shalom, this reciprocation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the window into Shalom, the way it's explained over here, so uniquely and distinct by the Alter Rebbe, and the enormity of the blessing. The Avodah Tzedakah brings something totally different. Why? Because it's a total different type of Avodah. Even the Maisa Tzedakah is expression of the nature of the godly soul of the Yid. That's very grand. Avodah beyond that? Really? Yes, Avodah is beyond that, and therefore the reciprocation, the pasuk continues. Now we're going to hear about something which is beyond Shalom. We're going to hear about Hashket Vavetach Adolam, security, certainty, calm for eternity. Even to hear those words, you see that you can appreciate the enormous energy which is in this blessing, this type of reciprocity coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the expression and execution of Avodas Tzedakah, the latter. So let's see it a bit inside. So the pasuk begins. I'll tell you, it goes back to the beginning of the pasuk. Even Maisa Tzedakah, Shekam Tzedakah, Nikum Mishim Maisa. Even the first type of tzedakah, which is called action of tzedakah, V'lei B'Shem Avodah, and it doesn't yet reach the level of Avodas Tzedakah, the latter expression of that very verse. Even though there, with an arousal of above, from below, when I do execute tzedakah in the way of Maaseh, I'm arousing this enormous reciprocation and expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is Ma'ader, Gilu, Eid, and Baruch Hu. You arouse there in the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We shouldn't take Shalom as something easy. Again, the Alter Rebbe explained it and used the same terminology earlier. Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Infinite is infinite. Infinite is infinite. Alter Rebbe famous has in Mem Ches, 48th chapter. What a sweet chapter in Kutei Amorim. Alter Rebbe opens up the window with a beautiful presentation in the phenomenon of infinity. Ultimately, Alter Rebbe's message, not exactly verbatim, but like, is infinite excited about a trillion over one, as an example? The moment infinity is excited about a trillion over one, of course, there's a grand difference between a trillion and one. It's not infinite anymore. It's not an infinite anymore. It was never infinite. It's not infinity. True infinity, a trillion, quintillion, and one is exactly the same. The moment it's touched, so to say, oh, this is so grand, you're closer to me because I'm infinite, and you're a trillion, quintillion, so you have a limitation, you're not there, you're not infinite yet, but nonetheless, this is like getting close, like a little bit buddy-buddy with the infinite, one is all the way there, even 1,000,000 and 1,000, 100,000 and 1,000 and 101. What's the comparison? You say no, infinity, true infinity is 1,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000 and beyond, and one is exactly the same. The moment it's a little more comfortable or identifies the million as something grand closer to it, it's not infinite. We're talking about the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. The Alter Rebbe writes the same expression before. This, even the first expression of tzedakah, the Maisa tzedakah, the Hashem, the recompense of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the reciprocation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for even the first type of tzedakah is also shalom. And as the Alter Rebbe explained, this is the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a great light and a great extension and an intense extension. And you see the two expressions, Ha'or Rabba, a light which is grand, and Vatshpa Atzuma, and an extension which is intense, which means a full manifestation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that causes us Shalom B'Mreim of the peace on high, as the Alter Rebbe explained. You have to see the previous classes. And so too, and the lower plane, this plane we're in. It also, everything falls into place. There is conspicuousy, there's clarity, there's transparency, or a conspicuous clarity. There's no confusion. We explained it, not to go over. We took one of the classes, I think the fourth or fifth, we explained, that everything's, you can have something, a lot of stuff, but when stuff is, thrown under the carpet, and there's ambiguity, and there's the good and the bad is all mixed together. One big could cause one big they call it the challenge, meaning to say there's no clarity in the person's life. There's no the inability to define the right, the wrong, the good from the good and the evil, the light, the dark. It's all one big mishmash, which is a way to say it. And if it's not so perfect, just put it under the carpet, make sure you step on it, and make sure it's flat, and let's navigate through life. But no, it's not working. Because when exists this stuff, when there's lacking shalom, mata, even a person can have so many blessings from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Blessings that manifest even physically in their own physical life. We spoke about it then. Healthy children, and parnas, a lot of even wealth, and health, and so on. But there's no shalom, there's no tranquility, there's no clarity, there's no crystal approach and vision in matters. On a daily basis, minute basis, second basis, in the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily work. All the blessings not necessarily bring true calm to the person or true blessings to the person. Of course, it's good, it always helps and so on, but nonetheless, the person is not necessarily calm, as we see it evidently. We see people have a lot, nonetheless, their life is not celebrated. A person who has the bracha of shalom, life is celebrated because there is that transparency in every single matter, and therefore it's able to define, it's able to divide, it's able to identify, and so on, as explained previously. And that's, of course, an enormous blessing. So even the first part, Ma'aseh Tzedakah, brings this shalom, which is the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's not only on high, but also below. Only thing is, actually, we say in the lower plane, it comes down to the lower plane. It's like somebody, for example, has a beautiful piece of furniture he wants to bring into a house. Many people's homes are just neat, clean, and appearing and appealing. You bring in a piece of furniture, it makes sense. It sits there, it right away changes the image of the house. But let's say the house is very dirty, and the light is really not working, and that itself causes that we don't even recognize the uncleanliness in the house and the disorganization and dysfunctionality in the house. You bring in the piece of furniture and you just put it on its spot in its place. It's not really going to work, not really going to contribute. For that matter, it just causes something that's counterproductive as well. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, even when it does land and it does connect to the Pamali Shalmata, which means the Shalom comes down on this plane as well, But the problem is because we're in a state of Golus, and the Golus itself is messy. So we have some great blessing of Shalom on this plane, but nonetheless, it's not finding its place because of the messiness of Golus. And therefore the bracha becomes a little bit kind of limited, because what is a good piece of furniture when it's in the box and you can't bring it into the house? It's possible. You got to revolutionize, so to say, the system and clean up, make a great, grand cleanup and organization and functionality, bring functionality to the home. Yeah, then you take it out of the box and it'll make its impact, its imprint, and makes a difference. But this cleaning up, that's redemption vis-a-vis Golus, the mess of exile. So even it's ready and it's there on this plane, but it doesn't fit so much, or maybe at all, and because it's a situation that there is such a mixture of good and evil, and the time of Golus, which is, of course, a time which things are blurry and camouflaged, the truth is eclipsed, and it's a big mess. Golus is a mess. It's a mess in so many different areas, which causes a mess to the world in general, Am Yisrael in particular. And the Yidel tried to navigate his world over here, and as Avodas Hashem, Golus is Golus. It troubles the Yid psychologically, emotionally, because in every single way, because that's what Golus is. It's an inherent mess. We're a deep mess. Geula cleans up the mess. Allah says, even it's ready, it's Bamali Shalmata, it's ready here and comes down like that beautiful piece of furniture. In the analogy that we just present, try to make this just to be able to identify with Al Rebbe is saying over here. But the problem is, Olam Hazeh shuffle, this lowly Olam Hazeh, the peace and the clarity and the separation of evil from good will not be revealed. It won't be manifest till the end of times when Mashiach will come, which is analogous to cleaning up the home, bringing order, functionality to the home, which this is what Mashiach is all about, bringing order and functionality to Olam Hazeh. Then you bring in a piece of furniture. It's going to make an impact, and it's going to change the whole image of the home. So this great blessing of Shalom will land in a very organized, functional place, organized, functional world, which is Geula versus now in the time of Golus. Not necessarily does it have an impact. So where is the blessing if it can't land? If the beautiful piece of furniture is in the box, what good does it do? And in this case, what good does the Shalom do if it cannot be totally manifest? So Alter Rebbe says, of course, it has an impact. And of course, there are certain times where this blessing of Shalom could be manifest and be appreciated in its full scale. For example, for example, when the human being, the Yid, which is called the small world, as the Gemara says, Elam Katan Zeha Adam, man is called a microcosmic world. In a time that he wants to have exercise a good davening, that's when that Shalom will be manifest in its full scale, because this is the image of a Yid davening, the experience of a Yid davening. That's a microcosmic Geula. The Alter Rebbe even had it in this very chapter. So it's an area which is not messy, which is perfectly functional and organized, again, in the alignment of the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which that's the whole point of davening. So that piece of furniture, in this case, the Shalom, could land perfectly there because it's there on this plane. And this is an experience of davening, which is a microcosmic Geula, redemption. So it clicks, and a person can have a real experience, which is an exhilarating experience in his relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, an intimate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think one once mentioned the famous Chassid, I think it was, forget Chassid of which Rebbe, he said, all you guys running after the pleasures and delicacies of Olam Hazeh, you never tasted a good davening. The pleasure and the delight of a good davening, there's no comparison, said that Chassid. It's like somebody who wants some money and he's collecting pennies, and there's $1 billion just on the other side of the room, and he's ignoring that. Basically, the idea was, he's saying, and we know that people who do experience good davening, there's nothing like it. It's a delight. It's not only just a formality of it. Now I'm connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'll talk a few words and think about breakfast towards the end. It's a matter of true, deep, intimate connection of a human being with his Creator. which is, of course, an exhilarating experience. A Yid is able to have that oneness, literally become one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what prayer is all about. So that's why prayer, for that matter, is called a Geula Prat, is called a individual, microcosmic redemption. So the place is good, the Shalom, this great blessing of Shalom comes straight in because it's here on this plane, and it's beautiful, it has a great landing tarmac, a great tarmac to smoothly land, which is the experience of prayer, and whoa, that's a different type of davening. The person could feel the Ein Sof within his davening. His or her davening, this brach of Shalom, which is associated with the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like it says, B'tzedek echse ponecha, with righteousness. So the Alter Rebbe had it before with tzedakah, which is famous. The Alter Rebbe brings Rabbi Yochanan. They used to give, Rabbi Lezer used to give tzedakah before, tzedek echse ponecha, but the Alter Rebbe is underscoring over here the echse ponecha. I mean, this contributes to good davening, as the Alter Rebbe explained before. But what the Alter Rebbe is underscoring echse ponecha, you're able to see the face, that intimate connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the experience of davening. Kinis like we said before. The only thing is, what happens after davening? After davening, the evil could re-arouse easily, and mix with the good, like as he navigates or walks in the darkness and opaqueness of this physical world. Which means that davening was a great tarmac. The Shalom could connect, and he could appreciate and have the entire marrow or the entire experience of that Shalom, which is a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Great place to land because it's a redemptive place. That's what prayer is all about. But does it become the norm of Elam Haza, or the norm of the individual which left davening, that he also walks the paths and the alleys of Elam Haza, which is galus, figurative, of course? What happens to that Shalom? Of course, there's a disconnect as such, because the tarmac is bumpy and it's not clean, it's not organized, it's not functional. Like we said before, the landing, the galus doesn't allow the Shalom, which is there on our plane. When Mashiach will come, everything will be cleaned, it will just connect with Elam Haza, with the entire default of Elam Haza. And it'll be a perfect merge, and the world will be completely sublimated to a great, the whole, it's interesting, it does say when Mashiach will come, so the davening, the whole world will be davening. Idea. It doesn't mean necessarily in actual only praying, but of course we're going to be learning Torah and so on, but the experience will be kind of a davening type of sensation. Also expression of a Rebbe, if I believe, or one of the Chassidim, because again, you have the Shalom, it's on this plane, and the Elam Haza is it's cleaned up, it's a clean Elam Haza, it's a neat Elam Haza, it's an organized Elam Haza, because Mashiach came, redemption is here, so the Shalom will land and become the norm, the default. Now, prayer is the place where it lands. After prayer, it's not necessarily becomes manifest, because again, the problem is, so to say, the landing area is not necessarily conducive for this great blessing of Shalom. The way it's explained earlier, and the Alter Rebbe encapsulates this idea, this revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a great ha'ara, with a great light, an intense extension, and so on, and becomes peace on high and this plane. And the only problem is the after davening experience. Again, the Alter Rebbe explains Alokoti Amorim famously. You look at the Yud Beis Yud Gimel, very, very important prakim. What happens after davening versus at the time of davening. That's why sometimes for me there's such confusion. Who do I love? I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I shuckle away. I come out in the street. I got to pull my eyes off something. Why do you have to pull your eyes off something? You're gravitated to that. You were just gravitated to God. What's the real you? You got to see. That's why Alokoti Amorim is the perfect manual to our service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with maximum clarity in every step of the day. It's worthwhile to look. 12th and 13th of Alokoti Amorim, the first segment. It's a click away in the site, tanyaonline.com. And therefore, after davening, when the evil re-arouses and it easily mixes in with good, there's already blurriness, and therefore, when he walks the darkness of Elam Haza, there's no landing space for this Shalom, for this great blessing. And here the Alter Rebbe will continue the next week. The Alter Rebbe is going to go on and explain, this is the Maisa Hatzdaka. However, the avodas tzedakah is totally different, because a person goes against his nature and against even his godly nature, and therefore the bracha in any situation, it has the ability to land in a way that becomes completely manifest, in a way that there's no limitations for that great blessing to land and accomplish this. This is synonymous with this tranquility and calm for eternity without interruption. We look forward, again, concluding this chapter with this final elaboration of this reciprocation, this which the avodas tzedakah brings, which is in these final words of the pasuk, Hashkit bavetach ad olam. B'ez Hashem, we look forward to this coming week. Have a wonderful evening.